For me, the people are more important than the product. You can have a mediocre product with the right people and processes, you can actually sell it. You can have a terrific product, but if you have the wrong people or the wrong processes, there's no way you can sell it.
Today on Law Next, Jeroen Plink, CEO of Clifford Applied Solutions, the technology development arm of one of the world's largest law firms, and a legal industry veteran who, among his many accomplishments, ran Practical Law US until it was acquired by Thomson Reuters in 2013. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment. But first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now on to my interview with Jeroen Plink. Jeroen, welcome to Law Next.
Thank you. Great to be on the show.
Happy to have you here at last. I've been wanting to get you on the show for a while, so I'm happy that we're finally able to do that. A little over a year ago, you became the CEO of Clifford Applied Solutions, which maybe was a bit of what goes around comes around, because you actually started your career as a lawyer in Clifford Chance's Amsterdam office. What was your practice then? What did you start out doing?
I started doing private equity deals, working predominantly for the sponsors, the private equity funds. Really enjoyed that. I think Clifford Chance, that's the one thing that has stayed consistent, is the people they're great people.
You enjoyed it, but you didn't stay too long. You stayed about 4 years, and then you left to start a company of your own. What was that company, and what did you set out to do back then?
That was a company called Logistics Limited. As I said, I really enjoyed it, but the entrepreneurial bug struck. I, together with a former colleague, had just finished a massive due diligence exercise. We decided that it was time for legal tech, even though no one called it legal tech at the time. We embarked on a project to automate the painful process of due diligence. Nowadays, there's all kinds of applications like Kira or Luminance that help you automate the process even more. But what we did was we built a workflow application heavily loaded with know-how in order to make the process smoother and less painful. So my first foray into legal tech.
That first foray ended up getting acquired by Practical Law Company. You sold logistics to Practical Law in 2002, if I have that right. And is that when you began to work with Practical Law then?
That's right. So we realized fairly early on that we needed, in order for our application to be valuable, that it needed quality legal content. And at the time, the best provider of that outside the law firms was Practical Law. So we joined forces with Practical Law. We were Practical Law's first and only acquisition. And frankly, I think it would be called an acqui-hire right now, mostly for the people, not so much for the product, because we didn't have many customers for our software. Our timing was not great. We launched in May of 2002. The dot-com bubble had burst, 9/11 had happened, and there wasn't much M&A activity, so very few law firms were willing to invest in legal technology. But the deal with Practical Law, that acquisition, was a great one, and it put us in a great position in Practical Law.
Somehow I've never heard the term acqui-hire, but I love that. That applies to so many deals I hear about these days.
Yeah, no, I know. It's a Silicon Valley deal or term.
So at some point you came to lead Practical Law's expansion into the United States. And you were the CEO of Practical Law US. As I recall, going back to when you started to do that, Practical Law was well known, well established in the UK, but it was not as well known in the United States and really didn't have much of a foothold here. So why did you think it was right for the US market, and what were some of the challenges that you faced in bringing it here?
So the Practical Law's business was very much jurisdictional focused. So until 2007, all of the content was English law. and we focused predominantly on the corporation and its advisors. So we would never do any family law or criminal law. It was pure corporate commercial law. We'd done corporate and real estate and finance and a bunch of other services. And we'd sort of gotten to the end of the runway in England. And so I decided that it was time to expand overseas. And so I proposed to the board of practical law that we would do a foreign expansion. Got approval, packed up the family, moved to New York, built the business. And we started, it was me, a woman called Lisa Newton, who's still at Thomson Reuters. And we built the business from the two of us to the 250 employees that we had when we sold the business worldwide to Thomson Reuters.
Right. And so that got sold in 2013 to Thomson Reuters, and it's still, of course, an integral part of Thomson Reuters. But how did you go about doing that? What were the challenges you faced in building that in the United States, building awareness of it, building a customer base? How did you go about that?
It was all of that. I gotta say, it was the best gig I've ever had, having the opportunity to build a tremendous brand in England in the world's largest legal market. And it started with having to build the product from scratch. We didn't have anything to go on, and so we started with two practice areas: corporate and securities was one, and then the other was finance. We considered bankruptcy and insolvency in 2007, which in hindsight would have been a better choice than corporate and securities, especially in the first few years. And the big challenge was finding the talent, people who had the experience of writing valuable legal content, but also not just practicing it, but be able to be a quality editor of that content. And then starting to sell it. And we were quite unknown at the time in England or in the US, and quite often confused with PLI, Practicing Law Institute. So that was hard. We would always come up against oh no, we already have PLI. Yeah, we're not PLI, we are PLC. But that was hard. But we built a quality team of editors. We launched our first products in the United States in 2009. 2009 was hard, but then the thing that made it or turned the tables in our favor was the launch of PLJ, Practical Law, the journal. And it's interesting that in the digital era, we actually got our biggest marketing success with a glossy magazine on transactional law. And that was great. I would sit on the train from New York City to Westchester. You'd see 3 or 4 people reading the magazine. Once we launched that, it started to work. We started to make sales.
It's interesting that kind of practical guidance product didn't really exist in the United States. I mean, it existed maybe in the form of, I don't know, treatises or that sort of a thing. But again, based on my own memory, I felt like the market had to kind of get its arms around the idea of what practical law did because it just hadn't really seen that in the U.S. market. Does that ring true to you at all?
Absolutely. The feedback from the market was overwhelming. I still remember my first day as an attorney at Clifford Chance. I honestly didn't know what I came fresh out of law school and I've never done any of these things. And and I think that rings true for so many first-year associates, and law school doesn't really prepare you for the practice of law. It's really good at theory, but not the practice, and that's the gap that PLC filled. But honestly, at every level, it's not just for junior associates, but also for partners. There's a partner at Slaughter and May, basically the top firm in England, and who once said, everyone uses practical law, but at some point you don't admit that you're using practical law, and I think that happened in the US as well.
So Thomson Reuters acquired Practical Law in 2013, and you left at that point, or did you hang around for a while?
Hung around for a little while, but I wasn't one for the big company culture. and I had a meeting with my good friend Mike Sussland, who actually did the acquisition for Thomson Reuters. I think it was one of their best acquisitions in their history as it transformed
I think that's true.
Thomson Reuters. And I remember sitting down with him at a dinner before the deal closed. We came to the conclusion that I might be better suited for the smaller, more entrepreneurial environment. So I left and did a lot of investing and consulting and advising of legal tech companies.
Was there any theme in your mind to the companies that you work with? What attracted you to a startup that made you want to get involved with it?
It was mostly the people. I have a strict zero asshole policy. I think life is too short to work with people you don't like. So I've only worked with people that I like and respect. And I think that's been great.
Is it the people more than the product?
One of the things that I learned from one of the co-founders of Practical Law was the people, product, process, methodology. That's the only way you look at a company, and I still use that every day. And for me, the people are more important than the product. You can have a mediocre product with the right people and processes, you can actually sell it. You can have a terrific product, but if you have the wrong people or the wrong processes, there's no way you can sell it.
So, Jeroen, last year you dove back into a large organization, I guess, joining Clifford Chance Applied Solutions as CEO. What is the mission of Clifford Chance Applied Solutions?
So Clifford Chance Applied Solutions is an important part in Clifford Chance's innovation and best delivery strategy. There's 3 strands to that strategy. So the first is best delivery. Best delivery has been around for a while, and it is where the firm uses technology, project management or legal project management, the right resources to deliver a better service to the client. So that's one part. The second part is something we call create, which is effectively our research and development capability. It's where we collaborate with academia, legal tech incubators, the startup community, and we have our own incubator out of Singapore, Create Plus 65. It is where we do our research and development. And then the third part is Clifford Chance Applied Solutions. And that is where we develop software applications that we sell to our clients to help them solve their problems, their challenges with compliance, workflow, and knowledge in a distributed environment.
So much of your career has been around this idea of providing practical guidance to lawyers and legal professionals. Do you see this as an extension of what you did at Practical Law and at other points in your career?
Yeah, I think it's a quite natural extension of what I've done before. This is very much about the content and the know-how. There's some technology, but I think technology is always the vessel. It's not the thing that really matters unless it's sort of document review. But I think all of the technology needs content to be really valuable. And what better source of high quality content than one of the world's leading law firms. At Practical Law, we had great content. We had terrific editors. This is, for me, this just a step in a different direction, or it's actually a level up. It's even closer to the day-to-day practice that we had at Practical Law, and that's very exciting.
So is it fair to say you're taking the know-how, the knowledge of Clifford Chance lawyers and legal professionals and essentially using technology to deliver that in an alternative form?
That's correct, yeah. So most of our applications are a combination of leading technology with the expertise of the lawyers in the firm. So, for example, we have an application called SMCR Manager. SMCR stands for the Senior Manager Certification Regime. It's a regime that was implemented in England after the global financial crisis. And its aim is to hold leaders in financial services companies more accountable for their conduct. And when we built the application, we took a low-code platform and we sat down with in this case, the employment partners and litigation partners, and encoded their knowledge into this low-code platform and made it available as a workflow tool with extensive guidance notes. And we sell that in England to compliance professionals, to HR departments and legal departments of predominantly financial investors.
We'll get back to my interview in just a moment, but first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, let's continue this week's interview. So, who drives the development agenda there, or how do you decide on the development agenda and what kinds of products you want to build and what markets they should target?
That's a great question. Once every 2 weeks, we have a product meeting. The first part is to discuss ongoing products, and the second part, we run a kind of Dragon's Den exercise where we will get ideas on an ongoing basis from clients, from lawyers in the firm, or business professionals in the firm. Every one of us takes one of the ideas and pitches it to the wider group as a first stage. Most of the products align with the needs of Clifford Chance, the law firm. We're a separate entity from the law firm, but what we develop is in line with the needs of the clients of the firm. And so in that meeting, we decide whether to promote an idea, kill an idea, or point it in a different direction. Sometimes we get ideas that aren't really ready for commercialization to clients, but they're still a good idea, and so we may refer it to our best delivery team, who can then use the idea for internal process improvements.
You talked about addressing the needs of both lawyers of the firm and also the client. So how do those two groups get involved, if at all, in conceptualizing or developing these products?
So our product development methodology is very much inspired by what we did at Practical Law. We never develop anything in isolation. I hired Jeroen Anderson, who's a former finance partner at Mayer Brown, then did product development for 10 years at Practical Law and Thomson Reuters before she joined us. And her view is, don't ever develop anything without having spoken to at least 10 people that will be using it. So we talk to clients, we talk to lawyers who are involved in the process. We really try to identify and address the pain points of the end user of products.
I mean, it seems so critical. We hear so much these days about clients, law firms becoming more client focused, about clients driving to a greater degree the agenda for what they need in terms of legal services and how they're going to retain legal services. It seems critical that products are being developed with an understanding of an eye to those recipients, if you want to call them that, those customers, whatever we want to call them. It sounds like you're doing that.
Building stuff in isolation just doesn't work. And we also invite them to play with applications in various stages of development. I'd much rather have them break it when it's under development than when they've paid some license fees for it and it's part of their critical workflow and then they manage to break it. So
you mentioned SMCR Manager. I know Clifford Chance or Applied Solutions also has CC Draft, which is I think a document assembly system for clients to use directly. Are there other products that you've built or are working on?
There's a bunch. So CC Draft is document automation as a service. We take our clients' documents and automate them. We do that on the basis of Contact Express, the Thomson Reuters software tool. And for our clients, it means that we don't have to. They don't have to automate the documents themselves, and that's doable. But most clients don't want to carry developers on board after they've developed their automated documents to begin with. Then all of a sudden it falls flat on its face if they have to change the documents and don't have a way to go into the automated version because the developers have now left. So we offered that sort of security blanket. Other products include something that we're about to launch. It was a multi-jurisdictional survey publishing tool. Quite often the firm is approached by clients with questions around, can you let me know what the law is on data privacy in all of the jurisdictions in which I operate, or what are the laws on bank secrecy in these 20 jurisdictions? Now, those end up being custom surveys, but we do a lot of the same ones every year. So what we're now doing is we're building generic multi-jurisdictional surveys in a large variety of topics. We're beginning with a data privacy one that will go live sometime in December, and we have a few others that we're exploring. So there's a lot of requests for regulation around artificial intelligence all across the world. So that'll be one of the upcoming surveys that we'll publish through that platform. And the interesting thing is it allows lawyers within the firm to actually take some of their existing work product to see if they can commercialize that through this multi-jurisdictional survey publishing platform.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit like another company you founded, the Corpman company, that was providing a global multi-jurisdictional view of clients' requirements.
That's right. In fact, we're looking at repurposing some of the Corpman content and pushing that out through this platform.
Is everything that you're building client facing, or are you building technology for the firm as well?
Yes, we are building technology for the firm as well. It's not our core. And there's very good people that are building technology for the firm. But there are some things. So the multi-jurisdictional survey platform, we realized, has an application for the firm as well. So we've built a one-to-many instance, a generic survey on corporate compliance obligations in 60 countries, made once and sold to many. But we realized that we could use the platform for one-to-one situations as well. So if a client wants a custom survey, rather than getting it in a 600-page Word document, they can actually get it through the multi-jurisdictional survey platform. And in that instance, we're actually selling it to the firm who then disperses it to the client. But the client gets a much better experience than your 600-page PDF format, get something that's searchable and can be used by many people within a client at the same time.
So I realize you're a separate entity from the law firm, but why does Clifford Chance, or why does a law firm such as Clifford Chance even start a company such as this? What's in it for them? What's their interest in doing this?
So we are a separate company, but we're wholly owned. I think the thinking is a couple of things. There's many things that we do for our clients that are loss leaders, or that the firm does for the clients that are loss leaders. And we're happy to do that for certain clients. But the thinking behind this is that instead of doing 10 times a loss leader for a client, let's see whether we can reuse that content, make it once and sell it 10 times at a reduced price. It's also less dependent on the ebb and flow of transactions or lawsuits. We sell subscription products at a much lower price than normal legal advice, but it's more consistent. And it's the clients who are asking us for solutions that are slightly different from traditional legal advice.
Are you able to reach clients in terms of affordability that might not otherwise be able to tap into the services of Clifford Chance?
We certainly can do that, and in some cases we are doing that. So, for example, SMCR, we are selling to companies that would otherwise think that Clifford Chance is out of their reach. Often not, but it has the perception of being a large law firm that it's very pricey. But those clients we can now reach. But I think the core focus, the strategy of the firm is the right clients, the right work, and we do develop things in line with our preferred clients. So it's very much for the Clifford Chance type clients, but it opens up the market to others as well.
So I wondered if I could just turn more to kind of the environment of what's going on in legal tech today. As you said earlier, you've been involved in legal tech since before we called it legal tech. I don't know what we did call it in those days, but you're right. It probably that's a more current term. Another word we didn't use at all back then was innovation. That's another one that's kind of taken off, and I don't remember people really talking about it much in the early days of legal tech. But I think undeniably we're in a point of pretty much unprecedented development, unprecedented investment in legal technology. This year we're going to exceed $1 billion in investment in legal technology companies. How do you think, as an investor, as a board member, or someone who's been involved in this for a long time, how do you think this plays out over the next couple of years? Are we going to continue to see the rate of investment, the rate of new startups coming along that we've been seeing?
I think it all depends on the direction of the economy. I think if there's a downturn, I fear for some of the current startups, because I think the natural instinct of the law firms will be to cut the startups unless they're viable and profitable and are likely to survive. So if the economy keeps going as it is, there might as well continue to be a big investment cycle in legal tech. If it turns for the worse, then I think the investment cycle will go down quite significantly. The interesting thing is that even though we've spoken a lot about innovation, the tech stack for most law firms is still the same as it was 20 years ago. You got your matter management system, you got your productivity suite, in most cases the Microsoft Office functionality, you got your email systems, and now you got your collaboration platforms. But that's about it. And that hasn't changed in 20 years. And I think there will be change in that over the next few years. I think law firms will have to make investments in better back office systems, matter management, billing, and the like. I think there's going to be a step change. Well, first a consolidation. So I think there's going to be a consolidation in the document review market. And at the moment, there's so many different small startups coming up, and I'm not sure whether that serves anyone, because there is not that much difference between them, and they're all too small, or many of them are too small to survive. So I think there'll be a bit of a shakeout and a consolidation in that market. But I think that's going to be a very important part of the tech stack of the future. And I think the final bit of the tech stack of the future is better contract lifecycle management systems that truly are end-to-end and integrate with existing systems.
Jeroen, I want to ask, are there, you mentioned a couple of areas that you think there needs to be more development in. Are there gaps? Are there areas in the legal industry that technology still has not even really begun to serve well? Do you see kind of unfulfilled needs out there, unfulfilled areas in terms of tech?
I think there's areas that are partially fulfilled, but not completely. So I'll give you one good example. The other day, I was talking to a client. They get 11,000 NDAs per year. 80% of those NDAs are on third-party paper. The average cost of negotiating those NDAs is £1,800 for this particular client. So that's a £20 million bill for effectively a document that doesn't add much value. Now, there's tools that help you, and there's some really good tools that help you do 50 to 60% of the work that needs to be done. And so let's say you send me an NDA, I run it through a tool that identifies where your standard form NDA deviates from my either playbook or what I've historically agreed. And it'll give me a markup that says, okay, start negotiating with Bob around these 5 points. So I still have to do the negotiation. I think that's a gap because the negotiation is actually the hardest work and the most painful part in this process. Not identifying the deviations, but the negotiation. So I think that's an area that I see a lot of room for improvement, and I think technology can and should help with that. That's one immediate area. The other area that is painful on both in-house counsel and on law firms is the onboarding and bill paying process. From a law firm side, preparing an invoice in the way that and in the format that the client wants it is a painful and time-consuming process. For the client, onboarding of a law firm and making sure that the bill is paid and issued in the format that it requires is also a painful process. And that means that oftentimes work that's being done in January isn't paid until September. That may not be a problem if every year you get paid for work that's done a year ago. But if there's a downturn and all of those bills all of a sudden get written off, then you have a big problem. And I think that's an area that's underserved. There's very few people that are focusing on it. And I think the industry as a whole, both buying and selling in this market, would benefit from a solution.
I know you're on the board of Casetext. That the legal research market is one that I find really interesting right now. A lot of interesting startups in that area, as well as established players. And just this morning, I was writing about the new partnership between Fastcase and Ross Intelligence to develop products. And again, recognizing that you're on the board of Casetext, do you have any thoughts on how that market plays out? I mean, can all these companies survive and compete?
I don't think they can all survive. I think it's a tough market. And I think the biggest issue in this market to really compete is the fact that you have to have a lot of content to begin with. And I think Fastcase has gotten there. Casetext is there. I'm not sure whether all of the startups are in that space, and it's harder to compete with the big players. Effectively, I think the US market has come down to two big players. I don't think Bloomberg Law plays a significant role in the legal research market, nor does Wolters Kluwer anymore. Maybe in the treatises space it does, but it's come down to those two. And I think the big difference is whether or not any of the startups will develop any technology that is vastly better than what's being offered by Westlaw and LexisNexis. I am of the opinion, but I'm extremely biased, that Casetext technology is superior, both from a search perspective and from a brief analysis perspective. I know all of the other players have launched stuff in the space, but it's 60% at best of the capabilities of Casetext Cara. And there'll be quite some exciting things coming out of Casetext soon. So I'm pretty bullish on Casetext as a player in this market. But the others, I find it hard to comment on others.
Anything else capturing your attention? Anything else on your mind? Any final thoughts before we wrap up here today?
I think the biggest challenge that we haven't spoken about is what are the alternative service providers, and I count the big four amongst those. What's the impact that they're going to have on the legal market? I think that remains underestimated by law firms, and I think that's at their peril. I think there's going to be much more work that'll be pushed to the law companies and the big four. And I think that even in the United States, that's more strict on the unauthorized practice of law. I think that'll be less restrictive in the near future. And I think that'll open up the market for the big four and the law companies to play a more significant role.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that we're going to see that coming, as you say, in the near future. Well, Jeroen Plink, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and to be our guest on Law Next. Really appreciate it, and pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Bob. Really pleasure to talk to you. Look forward to seeing you in person again soon.
We've been talking with Jeroen Plink, the CEO of Clifford Chance Applied Solutions. Before we conclude today, let me thank the sponsor of today's program, MyCase. With thousands of customers as a trusted practice management solution, helping lawyers across the country run organized, efficient, and successful law firms. You can try MyCase for free today at mycase.com. And a big thanks to Ben Ambrogi, who produces and edits this show. That's it for this week. This is Bob Ambrogi.